Brilliant. Thank you, James. As you know, B1G1, business for good, something that I support. So everyone who's come on onto the summit, I say conference, everyone's come on the summit. You guys giving up your time to be as speakers, it means that I can make a donation to this. So everything we're doing is having a good impact just for doing stuff today.
That's fantastic. 100% in alignment with that.
Well, no, it makes sense for us to do. So yeah, even just sitting and learning, people are doing good because I'm making a donation as part of the registration fee. So no, I love that. I love that story. So again, I want to come back because there's a little bit more behind this, isn't there? I mean, you haven't just sat down and made these things up just kind of one afternoon when you're a little bit bored. This is that would be a great thing, wouldn't it? If you could just come up with that one afternoon. The work behind it and the stuff where that's come from, that the closing come from. I'd love just to share a little bit more of that because you come up with these numbers and they're proven, aren't they?
Yes. So, I mean, probably the best place that, folks can go to if they want to, it's a big claim to say that it's the best practice in closing sales. I think that's a big claim. But about a year and a half after the book came out, Gong.io did a analysis of over 1 million different sales calls looking for that answer to figure out what approach is the best one. And they had discovered that just asking doesn't make sense. And whatever the next step was turned out to be the most successful way to ask for a sale. And so that should be very relieving to everybody on this call because if you go to search on the internet for a closing technique, 99% of them are going to have, they're going to have some name and they're going to teach you some manipulative technique that traps the customer into saying yes. And the truth is that doesn't work anymore. In fact, there's a whole ton of metrics around how much less effective they are. So I mean, we could spend a lot of time on just the myths of closing. The most famous of which is always be closing. But what the science has uncovered is that actually asking for closing over and over and over again, or commitment over and over and over again, is actually negatively correlated with sales success. It's actually 31% less effective to do that, and especially true the bigger your sale is. And so, what the data shows is you have to make one attempt. Okay, so you can't just not do anything. Yeah, you have to ask for at least one. And then after that, there's a negative correlation between sales success and the number of times you ask. And so and I could explain if you want how I discovered all of this, which is a bit of a story, but I struggle with selling myself and with closing myself. And so I, by accident, discovered this little question. And then when I realized that it was making a difference, I went back to my pipeline, to all these deals that were stuck in my pipeline going nowhere. And ultimately, they all started moving forward. And they didn't all move forward at the same speed I wanted, but they all moved forward at the speed that the customer wanted. And that ended up making a huge difference for me at a really hard time in my life. So that's a super short version of how I discovered it.
No, brilliant. And of course, the great thing and why I like it so much, I like it because the clever way you marketed it. Of course, I like a bit of clever marketing, but it's the fact that it's not a trick. It's not manipulation. It's not like an 80s book that you buy with, what did you call it? The What Would Jesus Do with the Atomic Bomb?
That comes from the timeshare industry. That industry is just oozing with really dysfunctional closing tactics. So most of the time, if you find a really bad closing technique out there, that's where it came from. Because it's a very large sale and they only have one meeting to get it done in. And so they'll try crazy stuff to try to make it happen.
I'm tempted to ask what it is, but I don't, because I want to keep the focus on the stuff that works.
Someday I'll put a big hall of shame up, a page that has a wall of shame that has all of these crazy closes on it and why they don't work. But the short version is let the customer decide. It's just pacing it at the rate that they're ready for. And if you just do that, you don't really have to lean into it. Right? It's when we start pressuring them and try to make the customer move faster than they're ready for. That's when they feel manipulated. So what we want to do is just figure out what's the exact pace that they want to do and move forward at that pace. It's the best you can do.
Yeah. Oh, please do the Hall of Shame. That would be brilliant. But for me, what has always struck me is that all this stuff is because you've done all the rest of the things really well. You've asked good questions. You've put together a good solution. You've built a relationship with the customer. You've done all the things that we've been spending all day talking about to get you to that situation. You can't just rock up and go, does it make sense for us to do this?
Well, I mean, if you have a
tell me who you are.
Yeah, I mean, every sale is unique, right? There's no one thing that works for every single type of sale. They're all a little bit different. But so there's a lot of little steps on the way to the big step. Some sales only require 2 or 3 steps, and some require 40 or 50 steps, right? Advances. And so the key is to step back for a minute for your type of sale and think, all right, what are all the little steps involved? Well, those are the advances you're going to ask for when you go to your meeting. And then to spend a little bit of time before you go into your meeting thinking, okay, what's the ideal thing? And what's a couple of alternatives just in case the ideal thing doesn't, it turns out to be not realistic for some reason. And that's, if you do that much prep, all of your meetings will be dramatically more successful, but they will always move forward. Every time you're with a customer, you'll always end up with some momentum, and they'll all be moving forward. Not necessarily as fast as you'd like them to, but as fast as the customer wants them to go. It's when you don't ask anything and it just sits there, then you get a bloated pipeline that's all stagnant, full of deals that are going nowhere.
Yeah, no, and I love that because it's again, it's gauging the pace with the customer. Some people do move fast, don't they? The deal goes fast. It's, yeah, we made decisions, bang, bang, bang. Like, whoa, wasn't expecting it. It is slow, but you just, as long as you can make a little bit of an advancement, that's the skill in sales. It's knowing how fast do we go in each case.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much skill there is. I mean, once you do the planning and you've got the little things written on your list, it's like when I was doing those guys in Sierra, Arizona. I right. I just looked at my list and asked them the next question. Right. There wasn't a whole lot of, a lot of closing books will tell you, oh, you have to know exactly the right time. So people will stress and ruminate over, what's the exact right moment that I'm supposed to ask a question? And you don't need to, you don't need to think too hard about it, guys. What I'd recommend is you have an agenda. So, maybe it's only half page and it has the 4 things you're going to talk about. And the 4th one is action items and next steps. And at the moment you get to that part of your agenda, you're going to ask them, hey, does it make sense for us to? And whatever you're prepared. So you don't really have to think too hard. It itself is a timing question. So you don't have to get the timing right. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm like you could say the agenda. Does it make sense for us to go to the next point on the agenda? Yes, it does. Oh, right. Okay. Says I've got to ask you what's here. No, you threw something away a little bit there. So it's just down to planning. That went a little bit. Oh, it's just down to planning. Hang on a minute. Let me rewind you. You do have to stop and think, what is that next step? Because I'm going to have to work out how to say that. They say no, then I know I'm going to put it back to them. If they go, I really don't know. Okay, well, I need plan B, C, D.
Yep.
Consistent with what Zane the pilot was telling us earlier today, the planning, the thinking about the contingencies, all of these elements, when you've thought about them, that makes actual execution so much easier.
Bingo. Right. And then it'll be completely natural for you. But the part that happens at the beginning is it's the planning. If there's a key to success from the technical aspect of sales, it's just planning. It's just thinking about it in advance what you want to happen. And then in the case of pre-call planning, I would just say there's kind of 3 things you want to think about. There's, what do I want the customer to do? So that's the advances you're going to ask for. There is, how can I add value on this encounter? Okay. And maybe I'll reword that into, why should this customer see me? Okay, because that's that speaks to your value proposition. So you're not wasting their time. There should be a valid business reason for you to meet. Okay, and then the last one is, how can I add value on this meeting? And the reason you're asking that question is because if all you're doing is bringing a price and some information, customers don't need you for that anymore. They need the sales experience itself needs to be inherently valuable in some way. Otherwise, they could just go to your webpage and get everything they need off of that, right? So we need to bring some value to the whole sales interaction beyond just information. And so you're going to do that a little bit with the perfect close because you're facilitating. And that helps them, because guys, they wouldn't be talking to you if they didn't have a goal. They're trying to achieve some sort of object. And so you're now a facilitator and a coach to try to help them go to the next level. And so that's a way I would challenge salespeople is, stop thinking about yourself as a person who's trying to get their money, and think about, how can I coach this person? How can I teach this person? How can I help them achieve their goal? When you become a facilitator, they will trust you and you'll become a trusted advisor. And a whole new world of opportunity will come up, because they'll, even if something goes wrong, they'll call you back because they trust you. They realize you're just trying to help them accomplish their goal. And so the best way to help them accomplish their goal is to give a little thought before you get into that meeting about what you can do to help them the best, right? And so that's those 3 things. You don't have to do much more than answer those 3 questions before you go into a meeting.
Yeah, a little bit of thought. Again, it's so consistent. I really hope people are listening to this, are picking up on these consistencies. Bit of planning, bit of thought. Yeah, trusted advisor. Janice spoke about trusted advisor. Yeah, you can aspire to be one, but ultimately the customer decides whether you're one. So you do these things to get you there, and giving service, helping them get to where they want to be. Major part of it. Major part. The value. Don't tell them what value is. No, you don't. You work with them to understand value. That puts you to the position to ask your questions, to ask the perfect close.
Right on.
Great stuff. God, it's so simple, isn't it?
It is one of those beautiful things that you can learn in an afternoon, right? So not everything in sales is quite that simple, but this one, fortunately, a lot of people ruminate about how hard closing is, and it doesn't have to be that challenging. I mean, literally, they just learn on this video, right? They learn the best practice, and it's really not all that complicated, right? So the way you ask is very simple. But really, the much more the lifting is what you said, Fred. This is in the planning that happens before you get in there, so you know what to ask.
To be in a position to do it. No, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Really do appreciate you coming along, sharing that, packaging it up for us so elegantly so that people can take it away. Yeah, they can take the messages from this. Yeah, planning and then do the stuff, do it elegantly.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.